We're diving deep into the Kerbau podcast today, all about, you guessed it, solo travel. And we know you're interested in exploring solo, but also want to keep that mental well-being in check. So this one is for you.
It's like the host of the Kerbau says, we kind of sugarcoat the hard parts of solo travel sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
So we're going to get real because that's where the really good stuff is.
Love it. And they jump right in with the story. I bet you've been there. Picture this. You're having this incredible day exploring, soaking it all in, but then you sit down for dinner. Alone, surrounded by these chatty groups. The host talks about this wave of loneliness hitting, and they actually admit it. I think I'd be hiding behind the menu.
It's so honest, and that's what makes it so relatable, right? Anyone listening who's felt that same way, it's like, you're not alone. Even if you're a seasoned solo traveler, you're going to feel this way sometimes.
Totally. You say, it's not about avoiding loneliness, but more like how you deal with it when it pops up. But leaning in to a feeling like loneliness. It almost sounds like something you'd read in a bad self-help book, right?
It does. It's like, what? But think of it less like a cheesy phrase and more like, how do I put it? Like building a muscle. A mindfulness muscle. It's about acknowledging those icky feelings instead of pretending they aren't there. You allow yourself to experience them without judgment, almost like you're just observing it all from afar.
So it's more like, hey, loneliness, I see you there. I feel you. But you don't get to run the show on this trip.
Yes, exactly. And that self-awareness, that ability to just observe your own emotions, that's huge for any traveler, but especially when you're going solo. It's like packing an emotional compass. It helps you navigate the ups and downs, which, let's face it, there will be some. And speaking of navigating, the Kerbau makes a really important distinction between feeling lonely and choosing solitude, which those are two very different things.
Okay, break that down for us. How are those two different?
Well, think of loneliness as that feeling that something is missing. It can be kind of heavy, even a little desperate sometimes. But solitude is chosen. It's like you're deliberately creating space to be alone with your thoughts, to just be without needing to entertain or be on for anyone else.
Right.
And the Kerbau talks about how this connects to the bigger picture of why people travel solo in the first place, building a relationship with yourself.
Which, honestly, when you put it that way, it's kind of beautiful, like solo travel being this journey of self-discovery.
Yeah.
But it's easy to get carried away with that idea, right?
Right.
Like, how much self-discovery can one person handle when you're staring down a plate of pasta for one every night?
Oh, tell me about it. That's where the Kerbau gets it right. It's like they're all about, embrace that solitude, but you also need some balance.
Yeah.
Like, they actually talk about how important it is to stay connected strategically when you're traveling solo.
Okay, staying connected strategically. That sounds less like a romantic getaway and more like, I don't know, a business trip with yourself?
Yeah.
What does that even look like in real life?
It's really about being intentional. Like, ask yourself, what helps me feel grounded? What helps me feel connected? Maybe it's scheduling regular video calls with your friends back home, kind of like those virtual coffee dates.
Oh, I love that.
Or maybe it's finding online communities of travelers who are into the same things as you. I mean, there are tons of groups out there for solo adventurers where you can trade tips, get advice, or even just, I don't know, complain about missing your dog.
Yeah, because even introverts need a little peopling every now and then.
Exactly. And don't forget about joining group activities.
Oh, yeah.
Think walking tours, cooking classes,
Ooh.
pub crawls, whatever you're into. It's an easy way to meet new people, maybe even some other solo travelers who totally get what you're going through.
And even those small things like sending postcards or keeping a travel journal can be a good way to process everything you're experiencing and stay connected to, yourself. Because if this deep dive is telling us anything, is that solo travel is just as much about connecting with yourself as it is with those new places.
100%. Speaking of connecting, did you notice the name of the podcast, The Kerbau?
How could I miss it? It's practically begging for its own deep dive. What's the story there?
Well, a Kerbau is a water buffalo. And when you think about it, they kind of embody what solo travel is all about.
Okay.
They're strong, resilient, totally cool with being alone, but still part of the herd when they need to be.
It's like that image of the Kerbau just trekking through the wilderness alone. It just screams that independence and self-reliance that I think draws people to this kind of travel in the first place.
Exactly. And just like a water buffalo needs those quiet moments, like grazing, just to rest and recharge, solo travelers need that too. That's where the solitude comes in. It's that balance between exploring what's out there and, the journey you're taking within yourself.
So we've covered a lot. We talked about those tough emotions, how loneliness and solitude are different, which honestly I'm still thinking about. And the best ways to stay connected, even when you're on your own. But let's bring it back to you, dear listener, because you're a
Yeah.
big part of why we're doing this.
Absolutely. And I think what you should remember from all of this is solo travel. It's not always those glamorous Instagram pictures and, I'm free. It's about the whole experience. The good, the bad, those moments of pure joy, and yeah, even that pang of loneliness sometimes.
Like packing an emotional first aid kit. Right?
Yes.
You've got your mindfulness techniques for when those tough emotions decide to show up, your connection strategies for when you need a little boost, and that super important self-awareness to guide you through all of it. And that's the thing about solo travel, isn't it? It's not about like running away from life. It's about like really leaning in, even the messy bits.
Yeah, it really is. It's about pushing yourself, seeing what you're capable of, and realizing how strong and how, resourceful you are.
Which, let's be real, you don't always get to do when you're traveling with other people and trying to make everyone happy.
Right. That's the beauty of it. You get to decide what a successful trip means, just for you. Maybe it's finally conquering that hike you've been wanting to do, or navigating a whole new city without using Google Translate, or even just giving yourself permission to truly chill out and just be present without the guilt.
And who couldn't use a little more of that? That permission to just, put yourself first. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, let's go back to that question that the Kerbau asks, the one we talked about. Solo travel, at its core, is about building a relationship with yourself. What does that look like for you when you imagine your own adventures? What kind of relationship are you hoping to build? And what might you learn about yourself along the way? Keep those questions in mind as you plan that trip. Until next time, happy travels.